Welcome back to Rudy's 1/6 World for episode 2 of our retrospective showcases. For today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the original Doctor Strange release by Hot Toys. They released this around 2017 from his introductory movie into the MCU. Seemed relevant given the number of Strangers currently on pre-order and also the release of Multiverse of Madness. I also do have the Infinity War version of the character, so hopefully I'll take a look at him later on in another video. So going back to this particular iteration of the character, Hot Toys unfortunately only released the one figure from the line, even though they did tease the Ancient One, which looked amazing. But we did ultimately end up getting Caecilius and the Ancient One from third-party companies, which I do have as well. So I'll review those as well at some point in time. So the hope for these videos is just to give you my overall thoughts. It's not to be a full review. It's just to tell you kind of my pros, my cons, and as I'm saying that, you could see the book of Cagliostro, which is really greatly detailed, and it's one of the nicer features that comes with this, nicer accessories that comes with the figure. But it's also going to be listed in my cons just because it is difficult to pose. So right now I'm just showing the picture, the figure holding the Book of Cagliostro, which is one of the details. He's got the Eye of Agamotto on in the open configuration to go along with the time effects. He's got on his right hand the Mandela effects, which are also nicely detailed and have a nice texture to them. Although I do have to admit that the front piece that attaches to his hand is a bit of a nightmare to keep in place. I can't tell you how many times that thing's fallen off, and I've just had to go back and try to get it back and to stay there, and it's a little difficult. So not my favorite piece. Visually looks great, but it's a tough one. He also comes with the Cloak of Levitation, which we'll look at a little more in depth later on. He comes with the closed version of the Eye of Agamotto. He comes with two other magical golden Mandela effects, a series of hands, and the nice thing about the hands is they are really nicely painted, and they all have the detailing around his fingers where you can see the surgical effects and the scarring, so that's nice. Then he comes with a standard clear pole with a waist grabber that attaches to the base. Now the base on this figure is something I've had in storage for a while, and I pulled out for this video, and it's actually a nice base. The name placard actually stands out. I never realized it was a golden metal, sort of aluminum, with the Doctor Strange name. It gives it a nice, makes the figure feel a little more high quality or high end. The base is one of the larger ones, so it does take up valuable real estate. And then he does come with this cardboard backdrop for the sanctum and kind of the window. It's a thicker cardboard, and it does have some creasing, so it's not the most expensive thing, but it does look nice. I have to admit, when you put it up there, it definitely looks nice. So I think it gives you a nice display feature, but it does, as a negative, take up some valuable real estate. So now taking a look at the golden Mandela effects, you can kind of see the texturing and the glyphs on them, and it's really nicely colored. And on the back you have sort of the fire effects where his hand attaches, so it's nicely detailed and it's screen accurate. These are actually a little easier to put on the figure than the green effects. So overall, I think Hot Toys did a really great job with these. Also, looking at the Eye of Agamotto, the version I'm holding up now is the closed one. Like I mentioned, I have the open version on the figure, but you can see the really fine detailing and paint application on the pendant with the gold, and even the chain has a nice mix of red and black. The Book of Cagliostro now, as I mentioned, it is without a doubt my favorite accessory here. You can actually see how nicely textured the book is, and the great color applications on the front. It's sort of a greenish hue. It almost looks metallic, and there are some nice details. And then the clasp itself, if you look at the clasp, it has some nice gold, almost brass-like detailing. And then the back of it is just like the front, nice applications and a nice central detail at the back. Now, one of the things I did like about the book is the pages, right? They look worn and they look old, so Hot Toys did a good job showing that. And inside, they've got a lot of details, and it looks very screen accurate, but it looks just like a shot from the movie. And then finally, the Cloak of Levitation. It's made from a really nice soft material, although it does have a little weight to it. The cloak attaches to Doctor Strange on the front of it via these two magnets that are held underneath the clasps. So as we look at it, the clasp has some nice paint applications and some nice detailing as well. The interior of the cloak is kind of made of a nice satiny material, and it looks almost like a quilt pattern. I have to watch the movie again. I do think in the movie it's a little more pronounced, and it's not as smooth as it is here, but still looks great and makes for a pretty nice impression. Now, flipping to the back, there's a ton of detail here. For example, the area around the neck has some raised detailing. Even though it's red and it's hard to make out specifically, it's got some really nice detailing. And then you've got the patch on his shoulder, and then you've got some pieces over the cloak that kind of create that quilt pattern that have screen printing, and they're different. They're not all the same. So it looks a little chaotic, which I think makes sense given the figure, but it's almost like a controlled chaos, which is nice. Now let's look at the head sculpt and look at the figure itself. I think he's a great figure, and I think he holds up for being an older figure at that. The sculpt is really amazing, and one of the things that Hot Toys improved later, as they went on, was the eyes, right? The eyes, before, they used to be just painted on, and they're still painted on, but they've got a really nice, almost glass-like reflective nature to them, which definitely makes it look more lifelike. One of the other things I like, and I've mentioned it before, I do like sculpted hair over kind of I can't even think of the word now, but I like sculpted hair. I think when it's done well, like it is in this figure, it really looks impressive. And you can almost see the detailing on the side of his head. You can even see right as the strands over his forehead, right? And then they're just hanging there, and then you can also see kind of the detailing on the side of his head where he's got sort of the gray. And again, here we're taking a look at the eyes, right? And they just really look lifelike, and it's really nicely done. And I do like that Hot Toys has the combined head sculpt with the neck, and you don't have a joint. That's always been something that kind of sets them apart, and on other figures it tends to be a little problematic. I also think the figure has some nice, great paint applications, right? The beard is done really well, the sideburns are done really well, and then you've got some great detail and wrinkle effects. It's just overall high quality as we've expected from Hot Toys. Now the suit itself, it's got some nice details. It's a nice fabric, almost glistening, and you can see his arm, I guess I'll call them gauntlets. They look good too. He's got the sling rings. He's got his belt with some really nice detailing, although the Velcro does stick out. I might try to fix that. And then he's got the hanging elements that show the frayed finish look. The bottom of his jacket, I think, has a little wire. I haven't really tried it, but it's got some nice layering, and that's what this figure has. It's really nice layering. The boots, they're not split cuts, so that definitely hurts articulation, but they're nicely detailed as well. So overall, I think it's a great figure. Now, adding the cape to the figure, that's where you get some nice difference and some nice weight to this. It looks great without it, but once you add the cape, I think it really brings the figure to life, right? There's, like I mentioned before, there's a weight to it, and the way it drapes over the figure, it just really looks nice. And then once you add it to the base, right, with the backdrop, and even if you just leave it there in almost like a museum-like pose or just a slight pose, it looks good. So I think that's a solid display option as well. Now, I also tried to get him in a little bit more of a dynamic pose. So I have him here without the cloak, but he's sort of hovering over the base, and I'm using the post and the waist clamp. The orange effects were definitely much easier to place on his hands, and you can see sort of from how I've moved his legs and sort of his waist articulation that he does have some nice range. So I don't think the suit is restrictive at all. So I think overall it's a figure that gives you a lot of options to display. Finally, I added the cape to this dynamic pose, and I got a little adventurous, as you can see, and I started playing with the wired cloak, and man, it makes a difference. It almost looks like he's not just floating there, but he's almost flying, which I think for this particular character and the movies he's been in, the cloak is alive, right? So it's a character unto its own. So this pose really sets it apart, and I think it gives you a nice, really nice dynamic feel to the figure, and really brings him to life. So I was always tempted, as I mentioned before, to just pose him with the Book of Cagliostro and the time effect, but that cape display, that might be, if I have the real estate to pose him and can live with that, that might be what I stick with, because I just think it definitely makes an impression. So overall, I love the figure. I think, you know, doing these videos has given me the opportunity to kind of fish out some of the old accessories that I haven't really looked at in a while, and I think it's a nice opportunity to play with the figure and revisit. So those are my thoughts on the original Hot Toys Doctor Strange. Let me know what you think, or which is your preferred version of the character, released or unreleased. As always, these videos are a work in progress, so hopefully they'll continue to improve as I go. But if you're enjoying the content, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll touch base on the next video.